Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of all trades, and welcome to another video. So today we're going to talk about a military shelter half tent. I picked up a bunch of military gear on Facebook Marketplace, and the shelter half was actually something I was issued in the Army back when I enlisted in 1989. And I got a tent with all the stuff I bought. So I was going to set it up and check it out, and I thought, why not do a video on it? So that's what we're going to do today. So stay tuned. Let's check out a military shelter half tent. And welcome back. So like I said in the intro, we're going to check out a shelter half, and we're actually going to check out all the gear that I got from this guy. But before I do, as per the usual, I got to ask you to go down and hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos, and hit me with those comments. If you like this kind of content and you like what I'm doing out here, hit me in the comments and I'll make sure I keep doing more of it. All right, so like I said, I was on Facebook Marketplace and I found a guy who was selling a bunch of military gear that his dad had in the garage, and his dad had passed on and had all this gear. So I bought it from him in just a lot. I bought everything from him, and I got a sleeping bag, and I got this pack, which is I believe this is a medium Alice pack. They had three sizes. They had small, medium, and large. The medium was the most common one. The small, or the patrol pack, was the second most common. But every once in a while you come across a large, and quite honestly, the larges are way too big. They get really, really heavy. And so I was glad I found this one. I got a sleeping mat, which is really cool. I got a entrenching tool. I got two canteens with this. Like I said, I believe this is a medium because it's got the extension on the top here with the magazine pockets on it. And additionally, I got a full shelter half tent. I got two sets of 10 poles. I've got two sets of stakes. And then I've also got the actual canvases and tarps. And I got three of these things. So I've got one full tent and then another half a tent. So today what we're going to do is we're going to set these up and we're going to see what they look like. And then additionally in there, I've got a full mess kit with all the silverware in it. That was part of the deal. I also got a military poncho liner, which I didn't bring with. And like I said, I got a sleeping bag as well. So I got quite a bit of stuff from this guy. But we're not here to talk about the gear I got. We're here to talk about the shelter half tent. All right, what is a shelter half tent? It's also known as a two-man pop tent. And what the concept was behind the shelter half tent is that there were two halves, and each soldier or Marine would carry half of the tent in their loadout. Why would they do that? Well, one, you split the load between two people, so it made it less for you to have to carry. It's much easier for two people to set these things up, and these tents are actually designed for two people to sleep in. Now, I'll grant you, you're not going to do much more than sleep in these tents. They are not that roomy, but they do provide you with a pretty decent degree of shelter from the rain and the elements and the weather. These tents do not have a floor in them. Anytime you start adding things like a floor, you are adding weight and you're taking room out of your pack for things that are probably, quite honestly, more important. Socks, change of clothes, food, extra things that you might need with you that you really don't need a floor in a tent. It's a nice to have, but you can get away without it. And a lot of people say, well, Jesus, why would you sleep in a tent with no floor on it? Well, you sleep in a tent with no floor on it because that's the way the military did it, to lighten up your load and to lighten up your loadout. So each shelter half basically comes with three basic components. You get stakes, 5 or 6. Typically 5 was the typical loadout. Now what I've got here is I've got 4 for each, but that's enough to get it done. Each half comes with a set of 3 tent pole sections, and these 3 tent pole sections make 1 tent pole. You need 2 tent poles to make up the whole tent. So each person carries 1 tent pole section, and then you also get the tarp itself to actually erect the tent. And then the ropes are typically attached to the shelter health already. Now, a lot of times, and that is the case with these as well, those ropes will often be rotten, or they'll be partially cut, or they'll be going bad. But they, at the end of the day, they're just ropes. They typically, if you have the original ropes, they're an all cotton rope, which are very flexible and very pliable. But again, oftentimes they just don't stand up to the test of time over, many decades of use, and they go bad or they get lost. And that's not a big deal. You can just go to any hardware store or your local home center and you can pick up replacement rope. So each soldier or Marine would carry half of this system, and then when they would bed down or camp for the night or camp for the week or whatever the situation was, they could erect one of these tents and they would have a place to sleep out of the elements. So let's go ahead and let's actually assemble one of these, and let me show you how to put one of these tents together. All right, so the first thing you have to do when putting one of these tents together is you have to join the two tarps to make one large tarp. So when you're all by yourself doing this, you basically just open this tent up and spread it out on the ground so that you can join them up easier. Now, when you're spreading these tarps out, you're going to notice that there's two very distinct different edges. One side is going to have a series of snaps on it, and then the other side of the tent is going to have 3 ropes and some grommets. The side of the tent that's got the series of snaps is actually the ridge or the peak of the tent, so you're going to want to orient those towards the middle. All right, so you got both the halves of these tents, this tent roughly laid out with the snaps all in the middle. Now you'll see that there's 2 rows of snaps on each one of these. You're going to want to overlap these snaps. You don't put them end to end like this. You actually overlap them, because that makes kind of a shingling effect, and that will keep the ridge of the tent from leaking. So go ahead and just go down the line, snap all these snaps together, and make your overlapped ridge and snap them all together so you have one continuous tarp. Okay, now I've got my ridge all lined up or snapped up and all ready to go. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to kind of, stretch the tent out, spread it out as evenly as I possibly can. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of my tent stakes and I'm going to stake down one side of the tent. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one section of my tent poles and I'm going to put it in the grommet, and I'm going to put it off to the side like this, pointing towards the side that has got the stakes in it. And then I'm going to do the same on the other end. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to fold the non-staked side of the tent over using the tent stake as a guide, and I'm going to do that on both ends. So now essentially what I've got is I've got about a 14-inch overlap of canvas, and then I'm going to stake down this side, and that should give me roughly the right width that I need to have between my sidewalls to put this tent up. So for those of you who have been paying attention, you'll notice that this grommet is missing a rope. So I've got a piece of 5/16 nylon diamond braid rope here. It's a little better than a foot long. It's actually about 14 inches long when you take the knots out. Tie a knot in each end. Just feed it through the grommet. And then once you've got it fed through the grommet, you can go ahead and stake it down. All right, for this next portion, you're going to need 2 more tent poles, a stake, and your guy rope. Now, this tent didn't come with guy ropes, so I cut off about 7 feet of rope here. I put a loop in one end. I just left the other end untied. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find my grommet here, and on the end of the grommet is a loop that goes in the tarp. You can do this a number of different ways. I'm just going to simply tie a loop using a basic square knot to hold it into place like that. Then I'm going to take 3 tent pole sections. I'm going to put them all 3 together. Find the grommet hole on the inside. Go ahead and stand the tent up. Take my stake and my guy rope. Run it straight out in front of the tent. Put a slight angle on the tent stake and pound it down. And then I'll do the same process on the other end. All right, now this end of my tent is going to be the end that is just going to be sealed up. This will not be my entrance. This is going to be the storage area. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to snap all these flaps together and create an enclosure here. And there it is. The tent is basically set up. But now that it's up, you can go around and you can make some improvements to this thing, because if you'll notice, the tent here doesn't go all the way to the ground. And what is this? This is just a really good spot for creepies and crawlies to get in. If you're spending more than one night in a spot, you can actually do a couple of things to get rid of this. You could either take dirt and you could pile it up alongside of the tent here to keep the creepy crawlies out, or you can take your entrenching tool and you can dig a trench along the edge of your tent 4 or 5 inches deep. It doesn't have to be crazy deep. And then once you've got your trench dug all the way around your tent, you can go ahead and you can pound your tent stake in. Using the bottom of the trench, and it closes up that gap right here. And then it does one other thing. It provides you with water runoff. So when you trench all the way around your tent, your water will run off in whichever direction the slope is, and it will provide you with drainage so your water doesn't come into your tent. So there are things you can do to improve this setup, to 1, keep the creepy crawlies from coming out underneath here, and 2, making sure you've got good water drainage. So you might be wondering to yourself, is there actually enough room in here to sleep? So I'm 6'3", 270 pounds, 275 over the holidays, and there's enough room for me to sit in here crisscross applesauce and not be hitting my head on the top of the tent. Now, I don't have much sideways room, but feasibly you could get 2 guys in here, 1 on each end, sitting like this. Now, as far as laying down, again, I'm 6'3". I have my feet right at the edge of the tent here, and my head, if I was laying down, will be in the overflow area. So my shoulders come right to the edge of the square portion of the tent, and my head will be in the overflow area when I'm sleeping. So yeah, there is enough room in here to sleep. It's not the Ritz-Carlton. It's not supposed to be. It's shelter, and it will be very effective as exactly that. So you'll remember in the beginning I told you I had 3 halves of the tent. So I've obviously got the 2 halves over here, which makes the 2-man pup tent. But here's the 3rd half. Now, I didn't have tent poles, I didn't have ropes, I didn't have stakes, I just had the tarp. So what did I do? Well, I went out to Walmart, and you can pick up tent stakes. That's not a big deal. So I staked down the back edge of this thing. Then I went out to the woods, and I just grabbed a couple of tree branches, and I whittled out a couple of tent poles with a taper on the top to fit in the grommets. Works really, really well. Had a couple of tarp straps in the truck, staked those down to keep the shelter up. I ran out of tent stakes, so again, I went and I just grabbed a couple of branches, and I carved off tent stakes out of a couple of branches, and I pinned this whole thing down, and now I have a half a shelter. What good is this, you might ask? Well, it's shade, for one. It's a windbreak. If you're cold, it'll help keep the wind off you. Put a fire layout in front of you, and you can stay warm. It'll basically keep you out of the weather for the most part. Obviously, if it's raining hard or if it's a torrential downpour, this isn't going to keep you completely dry, but it'll help keep you a little dry. And it certainly is better than poking the eye with a frozen carrot. So just to show you, if you only have a half a shelter half, you can still get it done. If you have a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of motivation, and a little bit of fortitude, you can make it work. And there you have it. That's the video for this week. Military shelter half tents. I really like these things, and I really like these things because they bring back a little bit of nostalgia from when I was in the military. They're functional, they're useful, they're lightweight. They get the job done. I got these at a very reasonable price. Okay, so they don't have a floor on the bottom of them. Big deal. Okay, so maybe they're not the latest and greatest and most highly technologically advanced pieces of equipment out there. But in a survival situation, or even just in a fun, one night camping situation, there is nothing wrong with popping one of these up, spending the night, and just having a good time in the woods. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Now, again, if you're liking these kind of content and you're liking these kind of videos, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. Ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos, and hit me with those comments. The only way I know if you guys like these videos is if the comments are there and the views are there. So please hit me with those comments. Let me know if you like these kind of videos, and I'll keep doing more of them. With that, this is Ed from Jack of All Trades. As always, thank you to my longtime subscribers. Thank you to the people who watch these videos. I really do appreciate it. And we will see you on the next video.